So again, I'm Ashley Kittle. I'm working on the Prairie on Farms project at the Tallgrass Prairie Center. And Dr. Laura Jackson and I are going to kind of talk about some of these strips we planted. We worked with Randy Luze, the landowner here, and installed 7 different strips on this field and then 3 strips on the adjacent field across the road. So 10 total prairie strips planted on the ag farm in June of 2015. And so these strips are primarily for water quality benefit, soil erosion protection, wildlife benefit, and pollinator habitat. So again, like Al mentioned before, this is just one more tool in the toolbox, and our tool is Prairie. So I'll hand out this handout to kind of give you a sense of where we are right now. On the strip behind me, we have 3 different mixes: a pollinator mix, which is a 3-to-1 forb to grass ratio, a diversity mix, which is a 1-to-1 grass to forb ratio, and then a kind of an economy mix that we're calling it, which is a 3-to-1 grass forb ratio. So a heavy grass mix, a heavy wildflower mix, and then a 1-to-1 mix. And so, like I said, the field behind me, which you can see on your map, has all 3 mixes. And then the strip that I'm standing in right now is the diversity mix, and then they kind of alternate onto this field is diversity pollinator, and then the field I mentioned over there with the other 3 strips, that's the economy mix, just more of a grass mix. And the details of each of these strips are on the back of this sheet. You can see when we planted it. These strips we planted June 9th, as Randy pointed out, tomorrow, so a year old almost, and the strips across the street were June 30th. So this is a year 1 planting, and if you know anything about prairie, the first year, not so great. The second year, a tad better, but by year 3, it's going to look really great. And so you just have to be patient right now. But you can kind of see the benefits here. These are 30-foot wide prairie strips, and let's see. You can kind of see here about some of the maintenance issues you'll need to consider. We had 2 field days we did last September, and then we're going to have another one here this September. So we'll kind of talk more about the details at that field day, September 14th. It'll be right here. I'm going to let Randy Luze kind of talk about why he decided to do this, just a couple of minutes, and maybe some of thoughts and challenges he's seen with these prairie strips. So, Randy?
Thank you, Ashley. My wife Cassie works for the University of Northern Iowa Foundation, and she introduced me to Laura's predecessor, Daryl Smith, a 3 years ago when they were setting up a Friends of the Tallgrass Prairie Center. Is that okay to mention that, Laura? A support.
We're not taking donations today.
Okay. So just was curious about the prairie, knew absolutely nothing about what it took to get it established, the seed, the process that Ashley and the staff helped with deciding the mix. Definitely requires some expertise. Quite a bit of mowing last year. We've got some thistles to spray, so there's some work to it. A lot of learning curve, definitely. I'm glad I didn't try to do any more than this. There's plenty to do at once. We did seed on another site a buffer strip along a ditch, similar to like Al Shafepaw's ditch down here. We did CRP prairie buffer strip there. So this fall we'll have, that would be about a 4 or 5 month old seeding. I set the strips up to kind of fit my equipment. There's 160 feet between these strips. Works good for planting, spraying, harvesting. My thought is, the strips and the cover crops, as we learn how to manage both of those together, I think will be a great combination for managing our surface water. So, any questions?
Do you own this land?
We own it.
And how much do your overhead is maintaining this involved, do you think?
I wouldn't say that it's. I think after this year now, I don't think it's going to be. My dad probably mowed it 3 or 4 times last summer. I'll have probably, a pretty good day. I'm spraying thistles out here, but just managing the edges. Things want to creep a little bit. And, I had if you'll notice, all the ends of I had a buffer strip around some seed beans last year that was like 30 feet wide, and for some reason the prairie didn't grow along the edge of my field. I don't know what caused that, but I'll probably I want to talk to Laura about maybe working this up and reseeding these ends, try it again. But
when you say you spray, like I don't even know what all the plants are, but can you just spray 2,4-D or the thistles, or?
I'll just spot spray the thistles with like a backpack or something. I'll just walk around. I don't think we can't spray over the top.
No, you couldn't. Yeah, there's a mixture of grass and wildflowers, and
the wildflowers we would. If it was just grass, you could.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're going to talk about the mixes a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of wildflower pollinator type plants out here.
In a few months, this will be solid purple and yellow, Panther Prairie. Sorry, no reds, no blacks.
Just kind of talk through the process of working with the NRCS, how that went, fairly easy, or what your thoughts were with that.
Yeah. Once we kind of got the idea to try some strips, I visited with the NRCS office in Benton. We were able to get them in the CRP, continuous CRP, which pays pretty well. This is like an 85 CSR farm. So really my out-of-pocket cost, other than a little bit of time, is minimal. There's the Prairie Center. I worked with them they had grants to help with the cost of the seed, and we're getting reimbursed for the use of the land. Just hoping that this would be something people can stop by and look at and say, hey, this is what it would look like on my farm if we did a strip like this. So.
And this is a demonstration site, so we have different types of plantings so people can compare. And we have a site we have different seed mixes to look at, the economy, the pollinator, the diversity. And then we also have a site down there where one half got mowed last year and the other did not. And you can really see what the benefits are of investing in that first year mowing. So Randy's put up with us and having these different kinds of things going on so that it could be a site for teaching and learning as well as for your conservation purposes. Yeah. So let me ask you all, when you look out at this tall grassy area, what do you see? What if you were just driving down the road, or kind of a weedy mess, maybe? Possibly. Yeah, you'd see. Yeah, it's a weedy mess. Okay, so here's what I see, and I'll make the assistance. Sure. Here's what I see. That's what I see. I see every plant is doing a job. And that job is taking up water and nutrients and pumping carbon, organic matter into the soil. Basically, what you're looking at is a living bioreactor, because these root systems are supporting that denitrification that you also see with wood chips. And our good friends at Iowa State have demonstrated, and they're doing a lot more research on it now, that if you look at soil nitrate, groundwater nitrate above the strip and below the strip, there's a big drop below the strip. Now, we don't have as good of a data as you do on the bioreactors yet, and of course we don't have flow rates, right? So we don't have a, but this is the carbon coming off of these root systems that's able to do that. So, shall we put it down now? Okay. That was, we'll just put it down like that.
Any chance y'all could hold it right side up?
Yeah. We need a crane for that. This is a one-to-one image. Okay, we grew this in a deep pot with a gravelly material, so it's different than the soil, but that's the basic idea that we're going after here. The other thing, if you'd like to wade in here, you're welcome to. There are no tigers in here, I promise, but you can come on in and take a look. There's a lot of different kinds of plants in here, and that's part of our weed resistant strategy. So what we want to do by plant, you could plant all grasses for sure, and it would be cheaper. What we have found in years, 25 years of working with the county roadside programs across the state, because that's been the Tallgrass Prairie Center, UNI's main job, has been working with the county roadside departments with their roadside plantings. And what we have found over the years is that if we plant a diverse mix of both grasses and many kinds of wildflowers, we have less weed invasion. So this is a practical approach. It's a very long-term thing. You don't plant this for today, you plant this for something that will also be a robust, durable, hardworking stand 25 years from now. And that means diversity. So this has got a lot of species in it. Many that you can see are getting ready to bloom in just a day or two. Others will bloom later on in the summer. Whether you're into the wildflowers or not, they're part of the strategy to exclude other kinds of weeds. So yes, we will have weeds in here, we'll have thistles and so forth. I see some dock over there that we need to get after. But those perennial weeds are relatively few right now. This is really a very good stand of very happy plants. And then each of these will get bigger. There's a lot of big blue stem and switchgrass and Indian grass down here, kind of at this level. By next year, they're going to be big, and each of these individual grasses, is going to take up this much space. So there's no way that any kind of sediment moving off this field is going to go any farther than this edge. Plus, we've got the roots underground capturing water and some nutrients, and then a lot of bird and pollinator activity.
What mix was this? Do you remember?
This is a diversity, so that means we plant about 430 seeds per square foot, one grass to one form. And that ratio we found in our other plantings works really well for us. It's less expensive than the pollinator mix. Last year, at 2015 prices when we planted this, this was costing $270 an acre, and the pollinator mix was costing $380 an acre. So the pollinator mix that many of you may have seen was an option for CRP, was extremely heavy with wildflowers, more so than we would actually recommend. And many of those wildflowers were poorly adapted to the sites that they were planted, and so you see fewer of them coming up. But we did a study with these same mixes out at Nashua Research Station with replication and randomization, so you can make some real statements. And sure, yeah, you can pass that out. Oftentimes when you hear about seed mixes, you're hearing the cost per acre to plant it. But what you need to be thinking about, what we like to think about, is cost effectiveness in terms of how much did it cost me to get 1,000 of those plants in the ground growing, right? So cost effectiveness is cost per 1,000 plants established, right? And the pollinator mix with good mowing practices cost $5.38 per 1,000 plants established. This mix that we're standing in cost $1.22 per 1,000 plants established. So it was almost five times more cost effective if you look at it in terms of the number of these plants that are putting their roots down and so forth. Now, if you fail to mow the first year to keep the weeds down, which is extremely important, that pollinator mix costs $17 per 1,000 plants. So you get the wrong seed mix and you get the wrong mowing practices, and it costs you a lot more money than if you get the right seed mix and you do that first year establishment. So that's kind of what we're all about, the Tallgrass Prairie Center. We do a lot of applied research and demonstration to, attack the needs of the people that are out here doing the work, planting prairie, to try to get the right techniques and methods in your hands so that you can do it in a cost-effective way. You're sure it's going to turn out well. It's going to be a success for you. So we have some. In addition to having this wonderful partnership with the Luze family, we've done several other of these plantings up and down the Cedar River, and we've got some support from NRCS, from Iowa Nutrient Research Center, from Leopold Center for Sustainable Agriculture, all to help to make sure that the stuff that we know about prairie planting and maintenance and establishment and so forth, that you all have those tools available to you. We're working on our website. We've got a lot of technical materials there for you that address different kinds of needs, different kinds of questions, and we're working on more of those. I think we're going to try to do like a training video and so forth. But we're really interested to hear your questions, what you think, what your resource needs are. Yeah.
One of the pollinators that I'm big concern about is the monarch butterfly. And
Right.
I wonder if anything you do benefits them.
Absolutely, and I did not plant this question. I wish I had. Yeah, all the wildflowers in here are good nectar sources for the adult monarchs, which need that energy so they can fly hundreds and thousands of miles. There's also milkweed seed in here. Now, we all know that milkweed, common milkweed, has been an agricultural weed for many years, and so the Luze farm did not want us to plant any common milkweed in here. Instead, we planted two other species of milkweed that are not been a problem in an agricultural in a crop field. We planted swamp milkweed and we planted whorled milkweed, I believe. One is sort of for drier conditions, one is for wetter conditions. Do we have some butterfly milkweed in there too?
Butterfly swamp.
Yeah, butterfly and swamp, no whorled. Yeah, probably not.
Oh, yeah, there.
So there's whorled in there.
And what's the kind that's problematic for farmers?
Well, I personally would say now with the kinds of weed control systems you've got, none of them are problematic. None of them, because none of them can survive.
What kind did Mr. Luze not want planted here?
The common milkweed, yeah, but the common milkweed is the one that historically has been an issue, and that was the one that was feeding all the monarchs. So that's, that was lost from the landscape, and so yeah, so common milkweed, you know, if you have a preference not to use common milkweed in a prairie pollinator mix, there's other options that will not give you the willies or keep you up at night. Yeah, and there's quite a bit of that in these strips. You're not going to see them today because they're still small. Some of these get bigger faster than other things, but by golly, they're definitely in here, and I expect we'll see them in a year or two. And if I got down on my hands and knees and crawled around commando style, I could find them, but
well, what is it about common milkweed that makes it such a problem and these others aren't?
Well, you know, some species of plants are better adapted to invade our systems. They've got, you know, their seeds germinate better, or their root systems can handle the conditions in the field. But what we know is that today there's very few common milkweeds in our corn and soybean fields, unless they're managed organically or something. Those common milkweeds are no longer common weeds. You know, they can only exist in the roadsides and the stuff like that. They can't make it out into there anymore because the chemical systems are very effective against them. They didn't used to be, but now they are. Yeah. The butterfly milkweed, it's very, very long-lived. It doesn't tolerate disturbance. You know, back in the day when common milkweed was an issue in our fields, we used cultivation, and that just made it happy. The common milkweed loved cultivation. It broke up those roots, and then they just re-sprouted. Butterfly milkweed couldn't handle it. So there's kind of an example of, and nothing in here can handle it out there. It's going to stay put.
Okay. How many, do you have a goal on how many of these prairie strips you'd like to see installed, or is this something that, you know, every farmer in Iowa should do, or is it more modest than that? Or
well, we are the Tallgrass Prairie Center, so we're somewhat biased. In terms of effectiveness, our friends at Iowa State have done some really great research on this. They've been working on it for over 12 years now, and their research is showing that the prairie strips stop 85% of the nitrogen, 90% of the phosphorus of surface runoff. They're beginning to show this effect on shallow groundwater. Of course, the tile lines that punch through it are taking nitrates unaffected. They're also showing that it's taking up 45% of the runoff. So down there at the end of the watershed, there's 45% less water leaving your watershed. And that's a good thing for flood resilience and also for loss of nutrients. So it's a really effective practice. It is building the soil quality right here if you were ever to farm it again. You know, it's building up the soil quality, making more crumbly, more tilth, more organic matter, and it is also soaking up a lot of carbon and putting it back into the soil, carbon that was here at the time of settlement underneath our prairies. So there are a lot of benefits. This is 10% of Randy's field, and according to the economic study that they did, it's about the same cost as a cover crop in terms of cost per treated acre. So this is a one-time deal. You're doing it once, you're not planting it every year. Now, I think there's still a lot to discover about the economics of this. I don't want to paint too rosy of a picture, but you know, this is something you plant once and you leave alone, except for some spot spraying of thistles, which we hope is not much. And the cover crop, you know, you're having to get in every year to plant that. So in terms of cost of nitrogen removal per treated acre, at least that surface runoff, this seems to be pretty competitive. Plus you have this benefit of you don't have to monkey with it every year. You get the pollinators and so forth if that's something that you're interested in. Yeah?
They asked me down there about what's getting in the tile on the 700 level. What's getting in the tile
but it's certainly something we want to watch for. The plants that are adapted down there to that wet area, some of them, those roots will go into water. These are upland prairie plants, and so far, so good. You know, Iowa State has been working on this for a while. They expect the roots of these types of plants water. But, you know, I think that's something we have to pay close attention to.
Well, that's I want to know about that.
Sure.
I got my thing, so if that tile's totally full of water, that doesn't have to go in the tile for the water. It's not over the tile, never been good luck this time.
We cover half of it and not cover half of it, just to look at growth into it. And that's in the shrub grass area. And we've been running a scope in the tile every year, and we haven't found any roots. And that's been in there 6 years.
I guess I wasn't here earlier. Is this the middle mix? I know you got some with more pollinators and some.
That's right. Yeah, this is our middle mix. So this is what we call our diversity mix. It is a half grass and half forb mix, and it's very specifically adapted to this site. If you look at your the handout that Ashley gave you, sorry Ashley, I forgot that you handed it out. If you look at the bottom half of the graph, the bottom half of the page, I've just taken a few of the species, the species list that's in the what we call the canned mix. That's the pollinator mix that's in wide distribution. It's sort of suitable, supposedly suitable for everybody. But I also highlighted in pink the species that would be unsuited to this site. Sorry, you've got the wrong handout. You want this one there. Right, yeah. So that's just a partial list that shows you if you plant a mix, it's kind of a canned mix for everybody, and you put it on, if you were to put it on this site, those species that are outlined in pink, doesn't matter what they are, they're kind of dead on arrival. And so part of the reason that our diversity mix is so successful compared to the pollinator mix is that we picked the species that were appropriate for this site. So, you know, that's something that we've worked on really hard. We have a seed mix calculator online that will pick out an ideal seed mix for your soil type and your county. It's going to be a 1-to-1 mix. We also have seed prices on it, but ignore those because those were from 2015. We have to update those seed prices. There we go. Yeah.
I drive by this, I guess, and it's
Sure.
and I see the ones that have a lot of pollinators have called air spots. They don't look like you need some grass.
You need some grasses. Yeah.
To control erosion. That'd be my theory.
That's
all pollinators in this type of situation.
That's right. That's right. The pollinator mix, you know, and I've visited with a lot of folks from the NRCS about that pollinator mix. They really just lacked good research, I think, when they made up that mix, and we're trying to help them with that. Yeah, if you don't have enough grasses in the system, this, by the way, this tall one here is Canada wild rye. It's a great early grass. It pops up like toast, and then it forms a good stand early on, whereas the big blue stem and those warm season grasses will come along in a year or two. So it's kind of a relay sort of thing. But yeah, you can't beat grasses for controlling erosion, and you want to get that erosion control in place as soon as possible. So, you know, this mix here is half and half. In our study up at Nashua, we had just as many wildflowers in this stand as we do in the pollinator mix. So they're even, Steven, in terms of benefit for pollinators and monarchs, and they've got more grasses to hold the soil. So we think, you know, this is a long-term proposition. We need to keep looking at this and studying it for several years, because, you know, this is just like this is like a ball game, and this is the second inning. You know, we got a long ways to go before we see the final results.
See, the other concern I had as a farmer was the milkweed mix in here. I think Randy asked you not to put the common milkweed
That's
in.
right.
The other ones, like the butterfly and purple cornflower, the other milkweeds don't bother me as a farmer because they don't spread.
Right.
So that was what I would
Yeah.
suggest to you. If you're going to put it in the farmer, not put common milkweed in this will fly around. These other ones will never know they're in there.
That's right. And we have done that here. There's no common milkweeds planted. Now I can tell you, last time Ashley and I were here, we walked several of these strips. I found one common milkweed.
Well, they're in
And they're everywhere, right?
They're all
So
over.
don't blame me if you got. We didn't plant it.
I don't think you should, you know, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe common milkweeds are game pollinators. I don't think they belong. If you put a different type of milkweed, it's still get the benefit.
Yeah,
That's
and we
what I-
can. Yeah, no, I agree with you. If that's not a species you want, you don't have to have it. We've got other options here that will do just as well for the monarch and without worrying you about the common milkweed. And that goes with other species. I know Randy's wife Cassie and I have this running joke. She says she doesn't like sunflowers. And there's a heck of a lot of sunflower species that are non-weedy in the prairie. And so we tease each other back and forth about that. But you can really customize this. Like I said, we customize it for purple and gold. So that's just to tease the Iowa State folks. That's all, yeah.
Are the different seed mixes that you have, are they which kind of creatures are they friendly for?
Well, the seed mixes that we plant are so diverse. There were 71 species in this seed mix. That doesn't mean we'll get all 71 species, but you know, historically these prairies had a lot of insects that were adapted to and needed one specific kind of plant. They were specialists. And so, you know, we can expect the more species of plants you have, the more specialist insects you could potentially attract. But in general, you know, pheasants, quail, you know, upland game birds are going to be very happy out here. I'm not a wildlife person. I'm a plant person through and through, so, you know, I don't want to say anything ignorant about the upland game birds. But, you know, basically, I've already seen red-winged blackbirds out here. I've heard meadowlarks. I would expect, if possible, we'll get some grassland nesting birds out here, which have got pretty song. And of course, they're migrating all the way up from Central America too, just like the monarch. So that's kind of cool when you see a bird that's just flown in from Costa Rica. It's kind of special. Other thoughts out here? You guys are doing some close observations, things you're wondering about? If you want some plant ID specifics, Ashley and I will be happy to tell you particularly what you're looking at. But you know, you don't need to know all the specifics of what species is which. It is important to be able to have somebody come out and help you the first year, because it'll look like a lot of weeds and you'll think, oh, there's nothing here. And all it takes is for one of us or one of our students to come out and look a little bit, and we'll show you the rows, we'll show you where the plants are, and tell you, you know, whether things are progressing well or not. We lose a lot of plantings to people who just freak out and panic and tear it all up when it's just beginning to take off. So it's really important to have that support. You can have all kinds of things online, all kinds of brochures and so forth, but that's kind of like trying to, you know, make your own prom dress without some help. You know, you need help, right? You need somebody at your elbow. You know, I could never plant a cornfield and make any money the first time around either, and no amount of brochures or websites is gonna help me do that. You really have to have the.
That's right. We need a little bit of everything. Anything can happen if somebody puts in a cover crop, they put in or they fail or they whatever,
Yeah.
they quit. You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you need to have somebody that can make sure you're doing things that work.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? But I think we need this, we need that, we need everything, you know. rather than just say, okay, now Randy can just till this here because he has a strip. Well, I don't think that would be the right thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you know, these practices will evolve over time. We'll find out what species are working best. We do need to find out, you know, this is a working landscape, and you know, the insects in here are going to be exposed to some chemicals. We don't want to just draw them in and then kill them all. That probably would not be counterproductive. So, you know, we have a lot to discover over time about the effectiveness of these. I think we'll see, just like in a grass waterway, if there isn't a cover crop here, we might begin to see on the steeper slopes a little buildup of sediments on the leading edge. That should be fine. You know, I don't see that as being a challenge to this, but there's the questions about the tile line and things like that. Now this could be, would need to be mowed maybe in, oh, it's 11:15. I got going and I lost.
Creeping over here.
It's creeping over here. All right. Well, maybe this is a good time to just stop, and if you're interested in more information, Ashley and I'll stick around, but we should thank you for your attention and call it quits.
Just
Yeah.
one thing, I do have a list of the seed mix, all three of them, if you'd like to see that.